question is, what are some of the major components of implementation planning in phase 0? And I'll pop this up just for a second. I'm not going to leave it up the entire time we're talking, but I'll sort of flash it up here so the audience can see it. But this is our implementation planning phase 0 framework that we use as an organization in helping our clients. And there's a lot of detail behind this, but this is sort of a summary of it. But maybe help us unpack some of these work streams a little bit. I'll leave it up for a second. I'll take it away. And if you forget anything, I'll put it back up. But maybe help us get started on unpacking this as we're going through.
So the first thing that I like about this graphic is the order in which things start on the left-hand side, right? So first, our executives are going to tell us what direction we're going. This is an enterprise project. It is going to impact the entire organization. So your executives better be involved, and they better know what they want out of this. This isn't something to be dictated away and assigned to the technical team to say, re-implement our ERP. There needs to be a strategy around it, and it needs to be driven in a way that creates alignment and what that means. I don't know how many organizations have been involved in where the CEO says, go and do this. It's the idea here is to maximize profitability through gains in efficiency, and the CFO, COO, and the sales guy all have different ideas on what that means. And so they all head in different directions, and their teams head in different directions because they're following the leadership given to them. These guys are over here worried about cutting costs. Sales is worried about maximizing the number of dollars that they can get committed, and sales is selling things that cost a lot of money, and COO is freaking out because it's not aligned, and you find that out too late because the contracts are signed, and now we have a problem. So executive alignment is the beginning, the direction that we're going to point in. Are we headed east? Are we headed west? And why? So that the organization can sync up with that. This will tell us where it is we expect our gains to come from, which is where operational readiness comes in. The process side of this, we expect this to create gains, right? That means that we expect this to change our business, which means we expect this to change our processes. So let's figure out what our processes look like today. Let's figure out where we're going to make changes, where we're going to expect our benefits to come from in those efficiency gains and those effectiveness gains, and let's document the difference. That way we know exactly what's changing and at what level. Is this a small, medium, or large change in process? Then we're going to start talking about the people that are going to facilitate these changes and the new processes themselves. Start thinking about what the impact on them is. That people side of it, preparing people for change is required for this type of thing. To prepare them for the change, they need to know what that change is going to look like and what we expect to gain after go live. So people readiness comes next. Now we're talking about giving them a tool to enhance their processes and enable them to adopt these new gains. That's where the technical readiness comes in, right? What tools are going away? What tools are coming in? How am I going to replace them? I know I need some of my tools to stay. That's always going to happen. That's fine. Which ones? And how are we going to integrate them? What does our data look like? Because when we start thinking about decision-making processes at the executive level, the data is what enables that. And if your technology doesn't actually represent the processes that you're seeking to achieve, then your data is not as useful as it ought to be. So our technical readiness is dependent on our ability to reflect our future state in a software system and then sync up with it so that our data is ready for that. That will also help us understand what we need to do with our data so that we can get the right pieces collected and make good decisions. So those are generally the 4 tenets and pillars of how this is going to impact your organization. The last piece of it is making sure that these all stay tied together, not just at the beginning, but all the way through your implementation, and then frankly through support after go live. So your project governance and your planning needs to be thoughtful and intentional so that when you build your PMO and your project core team around your implementation, you have the right people in it, they have the right structure for making decisions, and they have the ability to go and execute. that structure for making decisions is one of the more common pitfalls that we're finding out we're finding a lot of our clients fall into right now. This kind of is one of our hotter themes, in that if my team at the ground level, our business process owners, our global process owners, don't know what decisions they can and can't make, they won't make any decisions. And if they don't make decisions, then we don't know how to escalate the decision-making process. You should have a core team that's enabled to make decisions, that are able to then know which decisions they can and can't make. Then the sponsor comes in to be able to say, all right, these are the decisions I can make based on where the tiebreakers are going to come from. Let's say, for example, if you have sales and ops disagreeing on what this should look like, your sponsor is going to help break that tie. But the sponsor is also going to be very good at knowing, what do I need to do to escalate some of these decisions? Because at some point we need our VPs and our executives, our COO and our chief sales guy, to talk this out, and they'll make those decisions. That's okay. Sometimes our C-suite needs to make the decisions, and that's important because we can't break those ties ourselves in an arbitrary fashion, and they're going to be dramatically oriented towards achieving those goals at the strategic and executive alignment level. So there's a lot that goes into this. This is a great framework, and it's the very beginning of what it is our phase 0 framework starts to look like. So I certainly recommend you guys on the line take a look at this and see if there are anything on here that you don't feel like you understand or have questions about, because we'd be happy to answer them.
Yeah. And just to play devil's advocate for a moment, let's just say I'm gonna role play here for a second. I'm gonna be a doesn't matter, SAP or Microsoft sales rep here. I'm selling software and services, and I'm just gonna respond to what you just said. So I'm gonna say, well, hey, we don't need to worry about executive alignment because you're already aligned on buying our software. So clearly you are aligned as an organization. We're good there. We'll do some status reporting and stuff along the way. So we'll keep the team aligned. Mm-hmm. So we're covered there. Operational readiness and the business process piece of it. We've got pre-configured best practices in our software. Don't need to worry about that. Let's move on. People readiness. We're going to do some train the trainer as part of our project here. So we're good there. Move on. Don't need to do phase 0 there. And then technical readiness. You're going to replace all your systems with our technology. So that's kind of a moot point. So how do you respond to that? Because that is the sort of the messaging that I'm paraphrasing and oversimplifying, but that's the sort of messaging you often hear from software vendors and their implementation technical partners. How do you respond to that, or what do you think of that?
So, all right, when do I get to meet my team? That's the first. Right. That's a first good question, and they'll say after you sign your contract, and that's too late. Right. I need to. Who do I need to have on my team ready to go? Don't worry about it. We're going to handle that. You don't need to do any prep work. Okay, so how much time am I talking about for my core team? How many members of my core team do I need? We'll figure that out.
Right.
You should know those answers beforehand, because what they're telling you is they don't want you to know the hard answers yet, because what they're going to tell you is that you need a team of 6 people and they need to be dedicated full time. It's like, all right, well, I'll go hire 6 consultants. I say, no, they need to be 6 of your best people. They need to be the folks that know your business inside and out and are capable of leading your organization through this change. And then you go, I know who those 6 people are, and they have day jobs. And if I pull them from the business, we will be crippled. You want to have that conversation before or after you sign your contract and your system integrator is sending you a bill.
Yeah. It's a great point. And what ends up happening more often than not is you end up in that situation like, oh, I need to figure out a way to free up these 6 people that are critical to our operations that have a day job. And in the meantime, the software vendor, the implementation partner is bringing in the technical consultants and starting to, stockpile them on your project. Meter starts running. So while you're trying to figure out who's going to be on your project internally and you're trying to mobilize resources, get your plan sorted out and everything, system integrator is already running the meter. And you have to ask yourself, well, what are they running the meter? What good are they doing? What value are they adding if we're not yet involved in the project? And that's where a disconnect oftentimes comes into play.
And then the knee-jerk reaction is, well, I can't pull those guys from the business because I didn't plan for that. So I'm going to give you the B team or the C team. I would rather have the system integrator's C team than the client C team. Because the client's A team is the most important part of this. And when you say, well, now I got to put somebody on it. I need a body and a seat. So who's available? If they're available, same thing goes on the system integrator's side, right? A lot of folks who are available right now that aren't working on something, they're not working on something because they're not important enough or high quality enough to be working on something. They got moved off of it for whatever reason. That's not to say that the A team does finish their job and become available from time to time, but the folks that are available, you need to look at more carefully for whether or not you want them on this team. And if you're reactive as a client implementing this in a space where you're putting your BC team on it because your A team, you didn't plan to free them up, so you're not going to. Now you're diminishing the quality of your own implementation, and you're diminishing the quality of your own results.
Right. Absolutely.